Hey, what's up, everybody? It's me, Danae, and I'm here with a message for you. Happy Saturday to all. You know how I do on Saturdays. I try to switch it up just a little bit, and today I feel guided to do a never ending story kind of reading, and you'll see what I mean shortly. Something I've done off camera many times, but I haven't actually done it on this channel extensively with where I pretty much like empty the clip of the cards where I'm just going to pull and see what the message is as we're going card to card until there are no more. I heard Jay in my head, Jay-Z from in the song What We Do by Freeway saying, keep going. And you know that song, that's, I guess, more or less, that's the channeled music message today. What We Do by Freeway featuring Jay-Z and Beanie Siegel. Even though what we do is wrong, we still hustle till the sun come up. Crack a 40 when the sun go down. It's a cold winter. Y'all niggas better bundle up. And I better be a hotter summer. Grab the onion. Yes, the rock gets down. Hot now. Listen up. Yes, that's the channeled song for today. Take that as you will. But mainly I heard Jay saying, keep going. So, and I knew that was from that song. So anyway, I'll post it on the community tab. It's an oldie but a goodie, especially if you're particularly from the tri-state area. You can really appreciate that song. So as you can see, I'm cutting the cards, so I have no idea what's on the bottom, but I'm going to turn them over and we're going to pull from the bottom and let the story unfold as it will. Okay, so let's see what we got. Wow, judgment to start. All right, here we go. So judgment is our lead card. This is decision makings, and here is the absolute opposite of final decisions, which is some juggling or struggling. Maybe some apprehension about making a decision, or particularly there may be some imbalance with a decision, a judgment call that has already been made. When judgment is called, it's from the heavens, so it's really not much you can do about that. It's from, or I should say, it's in this sense it is from the heavens, as you can see with the presence of the angel, but in a practical sense, it's from a higher authority. So there's really, maybe the judgment call has caused some imbalance in those that have been judged upon. In the card here, there are those that are being raised up to a higher calling, a higher being of sorts, regeneration, restoration, even resurrection perhaps. And then this character in particular seems as though he's still trying to figure out whether or not he wants to answer to that call, or perhaps being left behind from the call to juggle his his energetic force accordingly. That's unfortunate, but here we see here the Nine of Wands, which definitely gives me that vibe here, where there's a looking back on some actions that have been taken that perhaps were imbalanced in nature, that weren't answering to the highest call, and now he's looking back with some energetic imbalance as to what he could have done differently, or how maybe he mismanaged his energetic force here, materially, mentally, physically. It could be any array of things. When we're talking about the Two of Pentacles, of course, it pronounces material and energy most prominently, but we also have the Wands here, which is about creativity. And when I see the Nine of Wands, I'm always thoughtful about mismanaging, looking back at energy that was poorly invested. So maybe that's the reason. There's a judgment call on mismanaged investments, and it's calling for some disparity perhaps that wasn't made in the highest integrity with the King of Swords here, and that's what's causing a disparity of energy and material measure here in the Two of Pentacles, looking back instead of looking forward as he should be to his higher his higher, most honorable self, and being in integrity with his position of power, he's still fixated on the judgment that's been called on account of what's already been mismanaged. And here we have the Star card here. What's the Star saying? The Star is that's the call. This is all forward movement here, forwarding energy to be answering to your north node. That again, almost doubling down. This is the call too. Judgment in the angelic realms from the source of all, the highest source, whatever it is you submit to outside of your being, if anything at all. Maybe you submit to yourself. But the idea is to be answering to the highest expression of that in the earth, to express the ethereal essence of your energetic nature in a practical sense. So what it is that, even more primitively, not primitively, but practically so, what is your north node? What's your north star? What do you feel called to do authentically, organically? How do you feel guided to pour out into the earth creatively, energetically, emotionally? Is there a balance in that outpour? This is what is ideal to be looking ahead to, but see this energy in the middle is still looking backwards. And then we got the Five of Swords here, which is perhaps an ode to the energy that was misinvested, or perhaps the Five of Swords, this is some measure of defeat. There was a determination to do something destructive in some way, shape, or form, and that's probably the looking back in the Nine of Wands, that this was the mismanagement of energy, that there was some, and here's the judgment call right over top of it, that, once upon a time, this energy perhaps had many choices of energetic possibilities, many cups to take a sip of. Maybe there's been even some overindulgence in a sense with the Seven of Cups. We can kind of imply that here, that there wasn't a sober spirit or mind in the decisions that were made to take action on for the motivation of power, ultimately, in the King of Swords nature. But it doesn't express that it was in the highest vibration or most honorable vibration of power with the King of Swords, when there's a regret or remorse for how you've ultimately pursued this power. And this is the matter of pursuit. This was the motivation: jealousy, envy, some obsession to win at all costs, to be overindulgent in your activities of satisfaction in a carnal sense, maybe overindulging in the ways that you I would say what I'm really hearing is like a diversion of spirit, where perhaps this is maybe even his spirit that's been too diversified in a sense. He poured too much of his energy into different things that didn't really yield a sustenance return. That some of these cups are good, some of them are not so good, but he was just pouring into, or maybe even drinking too many cups, for this purposes of, trying to acquire this exalted expression of power and authority, boosting his energy up. Ultimately, the focus should have been in the most authentic way of actually pouring out from self. But here he was drinking up, maybe from energies that were outside of himself. Again, some being very low vibrational. Many of these energies are actually low vibrational, leading to illusion and delusion of self, literally being drunk with your own power and position of authority, in a sense, taking lord over others' energy and willing to, exhaust all possibilities for the win, sword energy here for the win of power, perhaps even being psychologically manipulative, emotionally manipulative. And this says to me there's been a turn of events where, whereas that was the projection, now it's under the judgment card, it's actually the justice that is being incurred, and that's why there's this look back. So we got the strength card here. This is about With under the Two of Pentacles, this is about finding a balance between your lower natures, between your spiritual self and your carnal self, overcoming pride and ego also in a more practical sense. And that was the juggle here. It was the struggle. But what it implies is that the lower octave was chosen instead of elevating self to answer to the highest call to operate in the most authentic expression of creativity. The lower road and was taken to feed the ego, ultimately. So I hear like a God complex in a sense, to like feed that need, feed that greed, ultimately, to be engaged on energetic force as you can dominate over it for the purposes of carnal satisfaction. Ultimately, in the pursuit of big money, but in the Eight of Cups, that wasn't the determination. That wasn't the outcome. This ego trip, in a sense, is what I hear was for the purposes of pursuing this exalted expression of prosperity, to look rich, to appear rich, to give the projection of prominence, of prestige. And here we go from the Seven of Cups to the Eight of Cups, which is the signifier that as it is here already, the Five of Swords signifies defeat, but the Eight of Swords definitely says that there had to be a walking away from a great investment of energy. So for all the energy, time, resources, attention, to the point of obsession, in a sense, that was invested in this prowess for power, it had to be left behind, even leaving this coin behind. Maybe there was some acquisition of financial gain in some sense, but the way that it was intended to be attained was a misfire. Here, that's the disdain here and the regret, because this was the ultimate expression. If one had followed the star energy, true north, true in integrity, true calling, expressing self completely and organically and honestly, coupled with the King of Swords here. But that wasn't that was the road. The road taken was the road most traveled instead of the one less traveled. And although there was a great investment in that pursuit, ultimately it had to be left behind, because spirit has turned the tables and started raining down on those that are plotting and planning in ways that are not in alignment with your organic self. If the plan doesn't align with who you've ultimately been called to be in spirit and in truth, it's not going to be, it's like, this is like a strike of ethereal nature against that progress, whereas now it appears that there's a desire to take a higher road, and perhaps it will be fueled after having incurred the judgment, of the direction that's already been taken. Perhaps the spirit will then align or submit to this surrender here in this instance, assuming that this eight of cups is now this gentleman here who's looking to take a higher road, to take like I said, the road less traveled, the one that's less popular, less idolized by societal standards, to actually elevate your energetic force to match that you've been called to operate in, not the one that we're often confined to by standards that are conventionally sound, but the one that leaving behind a certain expression of energy that perhaps has been rendered to be unsuccessful and now taking the higher road. But these eight of wands, this is like fast action, fast communication. And it's coming before the decision in a sense. So it's giving me that it's almost a little bit too late for the quick turnaround, whereas that opportunity would have been more well received by the divine before time. But now in this instance, I get that maybe a lot of people that have mismanaged time in a sense are trying to make that quick change, to kind of clean up what's been mismanaged, or to make a quick change of direction in a sense. And first, I'm definitely not the sole source of all, so I can't necessarily say what is going to be granted in grace or not, because it is what it is. But what I'm feeling from this energy here is that the turnaround, look, the moon is even looking a little bit sad, like, oh, you like, you're a little bit too late, bruh. And here's this collaboration card, because, and you know why the energy is coming. It's not that it won't be honored, because so I know that's right what I'm saying, that it will be honored, the higher vibrational choice that's being made. But it's just that there's so much under the surface that still needs to be accounted for. Like after judgment is called, you can't go back and undo what's been done, by universal standards. There has to be an accounting for that energy that was expelled. All that energy that was invested has to go somewhere. And that's what this is. The Eight of Cups to the Eight of Wands is like the energy that I said was invested in these pursuits of power and prosperity is now being returned. That's what it is. And it's like, yeah, there's a desire to switch teams or switch agendas, switch objectives, but not before you ultimately have to confront the vibration of the frequencies that you expelled. You know what I mean? There has to be a confrontation there before there can be a regeneration in a sense. So and as I said, yeah, and the reason why is because there's so much that was done that has to be accounted for. This is like collaborations in the Three of Pentacles, of energies that have been working together. Perhaps, as I like to always see with this Nine of Wands, it's also about investing your energetic force, your creativity, and being in regret about how you did so. Perhaps these wands are even other people that were that he was in association with, and this is the collaborative energy here. We're in the highest vibration, it could be those that are working for the purposes of achievement, higher education, to basically co-create in some higher vibrational way. But in the lower vibration, coupled with this heartbreak card, the 3 and the 3, it was for purposes that were not most prosperous. They were prosperous for the group that was in pursuit. But they, again, back to this Five of Swords card here, which is where this is falling under, it was, and I'm gonna have to figure out how I'm gonna do all this, because I'm gonna get crazy about these cards lining up. But under the Five of Swords cards, it was a win at all costs attempt, So there were many that stood to be heartbroken in the path of this collaboration in one way or another. Part of me, and although there must have been a connection of sorts with this energy, is when it all comes down to it, when that judgment call is sounded, you only have yourself to answer for, and that's one to all. Everyone has to account individually for how they've invested their energy, their time, their creativity. Like, what did you do with the gifts that you were given ultimately? What did you make of it? How did you expand it, express it? What did you do with the gifts of the divine, meaning even other people, places, and things that are not in your, that are not of your, what do you call it, possession to manipulate, What did you do with that? What did you do with those people, places, things? How did you use your energy to be did you use your energy to be a vital vessel, or to be a venom? I always forget this word, vital, or not viral, vile. Viral versus vile. Were you a vital source in the earth, or were you a vile source in the earth? This Three of Swords here, with the Three of Pentacles, is saying that there were some poor intentions that were impressed upon others that ultimately didn't deserve it. Yeah, with this two of swords here, this is someone that doesn't even see it coming. Perhaps individuals that weren't even aware they were being finessed. Yeah, work here, work. Five of wands, 10 of swords. Yeah, this is about putting in work against innocent folks, again, for the purposes of manifesting some prosperity, but in competition that was unjustified. These are energies that are looking to one-up each other, looking to exert power over one another. This is the collaborative force now here in this Three of Pentacles that's now actually fighting against one another, also under the card of regret and remorse, because what all was invested in is not even working in the way that it was intended to do. They're betraying each other. You know, the 10 of swords here, literally. People are walking away from the scene because karma is coming down. Money ain't what it used to be. The work is not even working the way that it used to, and now they're turning on each other because there's no, everybody wants to be the boss, everybody wants to be the man, the head honcho in charge, the chief, no Indians. These are like all chiefs, sorry for the derogatory term, but you know what I mean. Like, everybody wants to be the head man in charge, but everybody wants to lead, nobody wants to follow, ultimately, with this Emperor card here. And this 10 of swords is like the sabotage and deceit of this entire operation, that they have mistrusted one another so much and ultimately sabotage their own work and efforts, that now nobody's winning. Everybody's, on the outside looking in, or in the position to be affected by this karma that is now returning to sender, returning, that vibration of energy that's returning back to the force that it originated from, literally laying folks to rest with this Four of Swords card. And this is like where some, have no choice but to lay down to rest, but some are being laid down as, if they're lucky, they're being laid down to have a seat. And, with the option of choosing a better road, if they're lucky, if they're so blessed to do so. Some are just not getting up at all. It depends on the magnitude in which you invested, which is why I'm saying, like, when it comes down to it, we can't, nobody can say, well, I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know that we were causing the demise of others. I didn't know we were breaking hearts. I didn't know that innocent people were getting hurt. I didn't know that, this was a diabolical plan. I thought some people may have actually thought they were doing something, as self-serving as it may have been. They may not have known the depths, or he may not even have known, honestly, the depths of what he had connected himself to, or perhaps didn't know until it was too late, and then tried to make a turn, for the better, a turn in a different direction. But the energy was already invested, already expelled, and now there has to be an answer for it. It has to go somewhere. This is here the page of the Knight of, the Knight of Pentacles, where I'm gonna keep it like this. The Knight of Pentacles, where it's perhaps been a long time coming for the return of this energetic force, and it actually, I also see that it slowed down money, and that was perhaps the interference that was projected to slow down prosperity of others for the sake of ultimately manipulating those resources for self. So coming up off of people that are disadvantaged, or in some way, like I said, innocent, unassuming, and coming up off of the backs of their misfortune for your own gain, for a more magnified return. And now all money is slowed down. Now all money is, and yeah, oh, wow, it's a ten of wands situation. And now the song makes sense, because what does he say? Even though what we do is wrong, and he's talking about, don't you know the cop's sole purpose is to lock us down and throw away the key. But without these drugs, something the kids don't eat, something like that. So it's like poor, the means don't justify the end, pretty much. So perhaps some didn't have such a diabolical intention as it was just to make money, to get rich, or maybe he didn't have much of a diabolical intention at first initially, but to get rich. Yeah, literally, Page of Pentacles here. It was a small intention of prosperity here, a small opportunity that he took, but it's led to ultimately being hung out to dry, and maybe him even taking the brunt of the sacrifice, literally, under this ten of Swords card and under the Five of Wands, that those that were collaborated with are ultimately putting him up for the slaughter, because, when you hook, yeah, and here's the Hierophant, which is about divine energy, and the High Priestess. Wow, what is that talking about? The High Priestess and the Hierophant here back to back. That's like the masculine and feminine vibration of ethereal presence here. It's like, oh, okay. So where he's taking the brunt, like I was saying before, it is quite possible, he's the one that stood to be most what do you call it? It's not sabotage, but I can never think of the word sometimes with the Ten of Swords. Like when there's been a great deception, here, where you've been deceived, like you're the odd man out ultimately. See how he's laid to rest in his Four of Swords. And I'm seeing this presence of spiritual energy here in the masculine and feminine. So that's a decent ideal that perhaps there's hope for him to come out on the other side, as was said. However, still not without answering for that account of energy invested. You still can't get around it. There still has to be an answer to that call, or the vibration, the answer to the vibration you put out. So here we got the Queen of Wands back up at the top, and that is about someone that is willing to receive creative direction, I would say, in a sense, and that would be the hope of it all. If you could receive creative direction, and as the feminine energy does, hold up, no. This is, see, for me, I'm always looking at the highest vibration, but it's not always that, especially with this Moon card coming up. This is a diabolical partner with this Judgment card, the Five of Swords, and the Seven of Cups. This is the energy that made the deception, or gosh darn it, what am I trying to say? It's gonna come to me. But this is a negative force right here, perhaps working with other family or friends to be an obstruction in some dark way. Thank you, Spirit, for allowing me to see, because you know how I be. I always want to see gumdrops and lollipops for this energy that was expelled in the darkness, underground, a lot of emotional manipulation on account of family and a partnership that was karmic, ultimately. That's what his regret is about. Ultimately, he put his trust and invested his energy in another feminine that is powerful in her own right, for this promise of the prosperity of Ten of Cups, which is pictured here in a darker vibration. Me seeing this here and knowing the energy of that queen, it's like he had the choice of choosing the higher vibration of the Ten of Cups, which would have been true wish fulfillment, again, on account of following true north, your North Star, your higher calling. But he got caught up in this and ultimately in this what do you call it, like a temptation of sorts, to see a faster way to come up, but by darker means. And that investment of energy into this process, you know, in this pursuit, is what ultimately is led to the Five of Pentacles here. You know, the Five of Pentacles is poor in spirit, is poor in material measure, you know, literally on the outside looking in, out in the cold, outside of the sanctity of your spirit, actually not being able to make ends meet, you know, not being financially secure and sound, not being spiritually or energetically sure and sound and secure. There's like some danger here, even in a sense, like very much with the Moon card as well, that and this is what I was saying earlier, where he's tried to make a different turn, to turn around and walk away, but that energy is following, is looking, you know, and she wants her money. She she was in this for the purposes of prosperity alone, not for love, you know, not for marriage, not for the horse and the carriage. She was here for money, for advancement, to align herself with a vibration of a force such as the King of Swords, who in his highest vibration, really moving in the way of his star, operating his starship in integrity, is a powerful energy. He's the more or less, he's like the genius of his craft. You know, he's the one that when you want something done well, you come to him. He's the CEO. He is the head man in charge of the kings. You know, he wields the sword of truth, and in integrity and honor. You really can't mess with the King of Swords. You know, he has a certain, oh, and look, here's the King of, and she knew that. But she presented herself, you know, with the King and Queen of Swords. They're two counterparts that, and I said presented herself. Give me a second. The downloads are just like filtering in. Keep going. Thank you, Jay. But the Queen of Swords and the King of Swords are like two counterparts that have dispersed in some way, shape, or form. They've been disconnected from what was once an alignment, whether it be marriage, a commitment, a union, an understanding, a business arrangement even, but in an intimate sense, there was some connectivity here that now, as you can even see in real time, is not so. You know, they're on two different, she's got her back turned and he's facing forward, probably trying to figure out what to do next, but meanwhile she is still plotting on how to get back to this position of prestige and prosperity that's been lost at this stage at the Five of Pentacles. Or perhaps I don't know, maybe she absorbed it all in this Queen of Pentacles, and the Queen of Swords is a cold-hearted bitch. So maybe that's also the disdain, is that he's been left, you know, juggling to fend for himself, because she absorbed all the prosperity that he had to give or acquired, or she's literally taken something from him and, you know, kept it for self, and now is guarding it with this, you know, and this Queen of Swords, like I said, in a very cold and detached, you know, in this vibration, just heartless way, you know, that's looking to, I hear, like, you know, she's looking to win at all costs, to cut them where it hurts if need be, because all her focus is on is this money. Now his focus was on the power, the potential power that this union could afford them both. You know, of course, in a selfish way of too, you know, if there was no come up for him, then obviously he wouldn't have invested, but he saw it as more of a collaborative come up, whereas it was always, you know, singularly focused here. It was about the money and about her prestige and her being elevated in some regard in her own craft by way of this resource. And she presented herself to be some love of a lifetime, you know, some familiar love, yeah, and ultimately, by appealing to his carnal senses. Yup, wow, this is really flowing. By appealing to his carnal senses in the perception of a holy way, but it wasn't holy. It was appealing to the lust of his carnal senses, even his lust for power is what I hear. You know, all this under the Queen of Wands, no doubt, like stick with me. That she presented herself to be his a counterpart that was worth the investment, someone familiar, like she mirrored, you know, Queen of Swords definitely is giving me like a mastermind in a sense, like she mirrored his his creative energy, his carnal energy, like gave a lot of passion in exchange, you know, like I'm seeing here, outmatched him actually when it came to passion. Like not only did she present herself to be the fulfillment of his desires, you know, in some regard, energetically, spiritually, but definitely in temptation, you know, lustfully, I would say. Like she really appealed to his wand in a sense, and it ultimately demoted him from what was the Ace of Wands, something that's very sanctified and sacred, to this Knight of Wands energetically, where you just looking to have a good time. You know, she ultimately almost single-handedly derailed his exaltation. She sullied, is what I hear, his passionate pursuits, and diminished them down to a knight status. That's like 2 steps down, not just from the King of Wands, but down to the Knight of Wands, where you're like a teenager, just looking, almost a teenager or a young adult, just looking to have your loins satisfied, and not just in a physical sense, because remember, it was about power. It was a power pursuit and about power, possession, and obsession for the both of them. Money more so than anything, but power certainly for the two, and some exaltation of creativity. With the Star card, maybe even perhaps fame and fortune. You know, most plainly and primitively, this definitely given me power couple vibes, but not pure power couple. It's giving me, you know, the power couples that ultimately are being dismantled day to day because they're not authentic. You know, like the glamour spells, the love magic is literally the sex magic, the love magic, it's all running dry, you know, and people are looking back at what they've invested in and wondering what did it really afford me? The Ace of Pentacles is under there. It definitely didn't bring me big money, looking at all they worked for with the 8 of Pentacles here, and seeing that like I said, the investment didn't match the means. The reward didn't match the work. So you put all your energy and time relentlessly into a union that perhaps was never really meant to be, but definitely not in the way that it was idealized, you know, and that it was projected one to another. Yeah, it was a poor commitment here. You know, she probably, you know, her best position is to be single. Or perhaps that's ultimately what is most desirable for her. It's just like these relationships are the come up, you know, 2 heads are better than 1, and ultimately, you know, I would say that definitely 2 people that are getting a taste of their own medicine, or that have ultimately met their match, is what I hear with this 5 of Pentacles falling under this 2 of Cups. It's like, and the Death card here, it's like 2 people that are their pursuits are just so skewed and so imbalanced that they ultimately attract the worst of each other to each other. You know, this is an attraction here, a commitment, an agreement of sorts between 2 people. It doesn't have to necessarily even, which is definitely giving me, you know, commercial couples, you know, because it doesn't have to be intimate. It can be platonic even, but there's some agreement of sorts spiritually that has been settled upon for some purpose or motive, you know, for some desirable outcome. And once upon a time, perhaps they were seeing eye to eye, but only illusionarily so, because it seems that her objective, as always, under the Queen of Pentacles here is the Nine of Pentacles, was to take the money and run. She don't really care about union. She just wants to be rich, wealthy, and living in her own world, but she'll do anything to get there, including cause endings to people unjustifiably, even unto this very union itself, if it means that she gets to come up on account of it. And that seems to be what has happened. You know, that he's looking at what he's harvested here, giving all his time and energy relentlessly to something, having more or less sacrificed himself in ways that were not sacred, you know, for the purposes of this union. And now what does he have to show for it? Because she's over here single. He's over here and having a spiritual death, perhaps, if he's lucky, literally lucky here with the Hermit card, to be able to have the option, and with the Four of Swords here as well. Again, as I said, if he's so blessed to do so, to have a transformational, to allow this experience to transform him in a way to take that rest, to go within, to seek a higher calling, a higher to answer to that still small voice within, that's going to allow him to change the trajectory of how he got here in the first place. You know, to get him looking back at what he shoulda, coulda, would have done, would be most productively invested as energy deciphering where where this vibration manifested from in the first place, and how he can do something different to change it for the future, to get into his most honorable, upright, integral nature. The spirit guides are here to help and to guide, but there has to be an agreement with that guidance. Here's the spirit of the Most High looking to pour down a new expression of love. But you know what? I'm hearing this as like tears, as well. That there has to be with the Three of Swords here and the Three of Pentacles underneath. There, and answering for this moment here where he actually chose his carnal nature, his carnal self, over the fulfillment of spiritual self. It was like there was guidance all along the way to try to literally sit him down, to dig himself, as we say in the tri-state, to really dig himself, dig what he was actually putting out, to turn around, to have a repentant moment in a sense with this energy here before it was all said and done. And falling under that Two of Swords and the Two of Wands and the Eight of Wands, as I said, it was just a turnaround a little bit too late. Does it mean it's hopeless? I don't think so. I hope not, for the sake of all here on the board, but for universal sake. But it's definitely something that's going to have to be a strong turnaround in order for there to be a recoup of any divine inheritance at all, because the devil is here still lurking, looking to keep energies bound and blocked from obtaining access to their divine inheritance, and ultimately to keep them subjected to these carnal distractions. This is third party energy right here, of just wanting to fit in with society, literally maybe having third party experiences, i.e., multi-sexual experiences as signified here. It might be hard, to shake this vibration of lust that was ultimately picked up. This Five of Pentacles is a matter of, and the Moon is a matter of picking up spiritual disease and perhaps spiritually transmitted diseases, if not actually transmitted diseases, actually, from this card here. And that's why there's this disappointment in this is like a growth of some sort that's been incurred on account of this commitment, this union, where she's sitting over here and maybe she knew the growth was pronounced within her. But look, the Death card, this is wild, that there's a possibility that there's potential for something that's incurable that's been incurred here, or just something that is so profound that it's hard to turn around from. Spiritual disease, as I've said, spiritually transmitted diseases are probably more detrimental than physical, transmitted diseases, where there's a physical sensation or response, because sometimes the spiritual attachments that we submit ourselves to ain't going. It takes a lot to shake that energy, and a lot of times what you've expelled on account of that attachment, that diabolical attachment, has to be reconciled before there can be a release. This is like spiritual jail right here, literally being blocked, bound, blinded, and it's by your own choices. It's not it's as much as you want to call, the devil into play for the interference, it comes down to the choices that we make, who we decide to align our energies with, what we invest in, how, I did a reading one time about party up now, pay up later. It's all fun and games when the liquor is flowing and it's laughs and, it's a good time, it's sensational, but when it all comes down to it, you end up in a state of regret. Look at that, the straight progression from the 3 to the 4 of Cups. When you dismissed that Ace of Cups offered to you here at this point in time from the divine, from a higher calling, from something pure in its most practical sense. If you don't even project it to be from God himself, pure energy. Queen of Cups here. You rejected that cup to, be in connection with energies that are loving, that to pursue that vibration of yourself that was either offered to you in some way, shape, or form, or that was available to you. Remember, he had the 7 of Cups. He had plenty of options. He made the choices, and he made and also the rejections as well. That was all in his power to do so. And here was this vibration here over the High Priestess, also with the Hierophant. This is just screaming to me that he rejected the opportunity to be in alignment. This is who he could have been. Wow. Or who he was called to be, the Hierophant with the Queen of Cups energy that was the High Priestess. But he chose to spread himself thin and spread himself wide, perhaps, for the purposes of this, these societal projections and obsessions, literally obsessions with the devil, and possessions of success and sensuality, sexuality, lust in its purest form is what he pursued, as opposed to love, and this energy on account of it is now moving on over here, and I hope you can see down here. It would be a shame if you can't. But over here, moving on in victory and success, that opportunity, even if it's not an actual person, but the opportunity for that pure love, that pure commitment, one that would be truly fulfilling in spirit and in truth, is now marching on under the Ace of Cups from whence it came, and where it belongs, with the true promise of a harvest that is material, as was obsessed of, but that's also in a pure form. That's something that is balancing for the community with the 6 of Pentacles here. Like his, it's balanced here, it's straddled here in the middle, because his objective was to be the Lord over all. Like I said that he had a God complex, to be the Lord over all, but in a diabolical sense. Like this guy in the lower vibration is one that takes liberty over resources and lords over making the decisions as to who gets what, when, how, like just obsessive in nature and narcissistic ultimately, with this devil card energy here, that wanted to have total control over who, what, where, why, how, and where of things outside of him that ultimately didn't have nothing to do with him. All for the obsession of power and possession. Now, it may not all have started that way, but that's what it evolved to be with the World card here. And that cycle is over, is complete, because now the Wheel of Fortune is here. That's, as I've said, bringing in the karma and the dharma for those that were on the aggressive end of this bargain, and those that were on the receiving end, or that experienced the brunt of this bargain. There were many casualties with that 5 of Swords over there. I'm surprised the 7 of Swords isn't out here yet. and it's coming because we're getting through the rest of this deck. But there were many casualties in this pursuit of power and prosperity. There were many, and this insistence on maintaining a position of authority, even when the chips were down. Even when the tables had turned, recognizably so, there was still this obsession, this like a demonic possession, in a sense, to still maintain this power over others, to still keep people blocked and bound, to the point where you didn't even realize you were blocked and bound, that you were connected to all the wrong sources and forces, and that ultimately you were missing an opportunity to be revived and rejuvenated, an opportunity for stability. This is the Dharma here. This is what's missed. Once again, over the high priestess, and which you can't see now, but the high priestess and the Hierophant here, the Lover's card. This is all what was possible by taking the path of the North Star, by answering to that higher calling, to the higher self, and moving in integrity, averting your ways from the wiles of the devil, as we all are susceptible to, to be finagled by, ultimately. But it takes a strong person to withstand that temptation, and stay in peace and prosperity, looking forward in a way that is fortifying, that, having an idea to be a positive impact on the community, not possessive of community, not one that's looking to rule the world for their own gratification, but that's looking to forward creative consciousness, that's looking to bring to forward the evolution of the human spirit by way of example, and to create opportunities, or at least the expression of stability. Here with the Four of Wands card, this is stability and union that is fortified by long suffering and faith, and those fruits of the spirit that one invests in individually with the Lover's card, choosing that higher vibration of self, answering to, being the best that you can possibly be in the earth, and being insistent about being about continuing to grow in that regard. That's what was rejected here with the Four of Cups. It took too much time and energy to do that. The devil will always present to you the quick and fast and easy way to acquire something, and it will be delivered. You will get what you're looking for. Ultimately, he got the relationship that is powerful, that was prosperous or is prosperous, but at the cost of his soul. Ultimately, yeah, it was a fool's journey. It was a fool's journey, and now we got the under the Judgment card. His judgment called on that. He moved away from his most loving nature. Here with the King of Cups, that's the most loving king in the deck, who's in tune with his spiritual self, who is intuitively intelligent. So he would have seen some BS coming and known to go the other way, but because he allowed that to be sideswiped ultimately by these ambitions of grandeur, it ultimately demoted him not just down to a knight's position, but down to a child's position. And this also gives me that there's some unresolved childhood experiences. Again, here under the Nine of Wands, where I said the regression should be looking back at how you got here. This is it here, where there's this projection of power and prestige, but ultimately on the inside of this King of Cups is a child, a wounded child, ultimately, one that has, in some way, shape, or form, there's some sorry or some regret in order, some sympathy in regards to the existence of this child for what has been done in the past, what experiences have been incurred in his past, and instead of the fool's journey in the upright, moving in faith towards a fulfillment in the spirit, towards love, towards spiritual alignment, it was a regression that put ultimately into depression with the Five of Pentacles here. And here's moving forward, that would have been the case Or, also I see, these are authorities, because look here, who's, like I called into play, the Seven of Swords. This is the action that was taken on account of this plot. There was the projection of demise and distraction and causing a disturbance in those that were prospering in a certain way. But here is the action that was set forth in this diabolical union of sorts, to continuously look to outsmart others, or to come up on the backs of others, on the misfortune of others. And here, as I always say with the Seven of Swords, you get met exactly wherever you go. And here it's like he's thinking he's getting away with murder, literally right here, or arsony, or larceny, thinking he's getting away with something here, but ultimately being met by the authorities themselves, the highest authority in the land. And in terms of our system is concerned, whether it be a police officer, FBI, some officer of the law is here observing the situation at hand, taking note of what's going on in all parties involved. And although there may be a semblance of getting away and, of pretty much, doing something that pulling the wool over others' eyes, you always, as above, so below, have to meet your actions. Yeah, here's the Tower card right here. And I almost want to move it over, but I don't want to scrape up all these cards and get on my nerves with straightening them. But yeah, like the Tower card is here because it's all coming crashing down for this tomfoolery magic that was invested in ways that was not ideal, that was obstructive here with the Seven of Wands. This is, instead of being the force to ultimately protect oneself against, this dark vibration, and he was bringing the house down. And now that energy has to return, as I said, and it's all being exposed with the Sun card here, that no matter how defensive he may be towards these, towards the opposition that ultimately he has incurred for himself, there's some exposure that's happening, that whether it be in the public eye, whether, again, in the judicial system, whether it be amongst friends or foes or whomever he's surrounded himself by, the true nature of his actions, that the dark nature of what's been going on under the surface, like how have you really acquired this wealth? How have you really acquired these positions of prominence and power? What have you really been doing behind the scenes, that you wouldn't want anybody to know about? How, and that's right here with the Three of Wands. What have you really been doing? Like, what energy have you? This is someone that has expelled a plan of some sort and is just waiting for the return of their investment, waiting for the return of the energy that's been expelled. The Magician here is a manipulator. He's not an alchemist in this regard. It's somebody that manipulates energy for his own gratification and satisfaction. And that wand has been demoted significantly yet again to a child's pose, where it's barely, it's insignificant in a sense. And also what I'm seeing is that, well, I won't say it's insignificant, but it's powerless in the grand scheme of what it was. Remember, he once upon a time had the Ace of Wands and allowed his actions and affiliations to demote him down to a knight. And now he's down to a page because he just refused to resist his diabolical nature and surrender to his spiritual self, his supreme self, I will say. So here he is at the Page of Wands. And also what I'm hearing is that this expectation of ships coming in is coming in much smaller. You went from the 3 to the 1. It's coming in a much more minimal measurement than what was intended. That for all the work and investment, the hard labor, the ways you put yourself in harm's way to acquire this outcome, to stay in this manipulative power, to bring towers down on others, to literally cause disruptions in other people's lives, to ultimately, hijack the sun, to hijack this vitality of energy that didn't belong to him to possess in the first place. Again, it's like trying to take, literally trying to take the sun hostage. The vitality and energy, that manifestation force, was being taken hostage by way of manipulating others' energetic force, manipulating others in the power of the star, whether it be intimately or distantly so, because as I said, it's giving me couples vibes, those picturesque public couples for what do you call it? For the purposes of appearances and for, to make money ultimately, like YouTube couples and stuff that present for presentation purposes is what I'm trying to say. And it's given me that. So a lot of times, even with that, as innocent as it might seem, like, oh, it's just a business arrangement, we just going to do this and, we'll double up, you know what I mean? But ultimately, you're still selling a lie. It's not real. And not only will you falter to the lie, but then you get caught up in trying to keep the lie up and keep it, keep up the appearance of what you presented, because now it's gained you some prosperity. And then you find yourself, this is how it ultimately ends up, where you do things that you never even intended to do, because now you have an image to uphold. Now you have literally a bank account, a livelihood to maintain on account of this falsehood, this illusion that you created. And it causes nothing but despair, nothing but anxiety, because the demotion has happened, and whether or not others see it, it's true to you, it's true to the nature of the people that are projecting it. And it's hard to sleep at night when you're ultimately living a lie. It's hard to sleep. This is depression right here. Yeah, when you're living imbalanced and you're not living in your truth, you're not allowing the universe to reward you according to what is pure and what is rightfully yours. You're not allowing yourself to cross over into calmer waters because you're too fixated on, I'm hearing don't go chasing waterfalls. You're too fixated on what you've created for yourself, literally chasing waterfalls on account of prosperity and again, overindulgence. For what? Power. For what? Authority. This is when you're that focused on things of that nature, it's always going to lead down a bad, it's never going to lead to peace and calmness. This is moving on to peaceful and calmer waters. Perhaps you would have found prosperity by way of following that path and balance as well, but instead there was a choice to put all energy, all creative energy and force into filling up as many cups as possible. This is like overindulgence in both ways, in the monetary sense and an energetic sense. In a creative sense, it's like you could never get enough, whether it was other people's energy or whether it was, building, well, ultimately it was for the purposes of pouring up your own, expanding your own territory, expanding your own vibration, elevating, so being the most creative in the room, being the most powerful with the King of Wands, possessing the land in any way, shape, or form that you could see fit to do so, and expressing that in the way of prosperity, looking the part of being rich, looking like you're prosperous, looking like you're the man, the kingpin, the head honcho. Ultimately, this is the vibration of the two in its raw form, where it can't be sustainable because it's not real. These are cups that were not rightfully acquired. This is energy that was not rightfully obtained. This is not purely obtained, not righteously obtained. It was the motivation and the intentions were so skewed and off balance that it created a throne, no doubt. But look at the difference. this makeshift throne of his own versus the King of Pentacles and the King of Wands, who are justified kings that have their own court, their own kingdoms. This ain't no kingdom. This is chaos right here in this vibration that I'm speaking of today. Someone that literally built a throne upon chaos, literally caused chaos in other people's lives and then brought it unto himself just to say that he held the power and the money and for some semblance of respect, of which he obviously didn't get enough of when he was a child in some way, shape, or form. This is narcissistic energy at its best. This is what it is. So here we got the Empress here, who is the truth, for sure and for certain. But then you got this, him watching, once again, idolizing the feminine power. So it says to me that there's still disparity in learning a lesson here, because under the Fool card, no doubt, because now you've elevated yourself, at least look in appearances, to at least the Nine of Cups on the outside, but there's still this sense of entitlement here to ultimately take action, fast action on things that do not, still under the Seven of Swords, for things that don't belong to you, that are not due to you, and that are not, and with motivation that is not pure and highly intentional. That's what this energy here. But what I see is the great disparity between this Empress card, which is the expression of power, ultimately, again, in prestige in a different way. And I think the Emperor was somewhere under here, buried under here on this side, as a matter of fact. But what it demonstrates to me is that even as things have fallen apart, and there's been evidence of that falling apart, that this character still hasn't learned his, like I was saying, it's like if you choose the higher octave, then yes, there is grace. But it seems to me that there still isn't a reverence for the truth in the way that would be regenerating and that would be redeemable for his sake, because he's still looking outside of himself for any other truth but what is his own, ultimately looking for a way to still put himself back on top as this King of Swords energy, but he's in the Page of Swords vibration and the Nine of Cups spirit, and with Nine of Swords intentions. Nine of Cups is just a half-ass offering of spirit. It's like you're, in this case, not always, but it's like you're willing to just offer just enough. And connected to the Page of Swords, yeah, it's like there's no healing here. He hasn't even allowed himself to heal completely yet, because he's still too fixated on coming back up, on picking himself up by the bootstraps to refortify that projection of prosperity that he ultimately has found his measure by. He finds his importance and his respect for himself and what he has to gain, what he has to project as prosperity, what he can count in his bank account, what he can measure, his house, his car, things, even control over people, expressions of creativity, even lording over expressions of creativity, or presenting himself as some star of sorts, but still not operating in the vein that he's been called to do so most authentically. So this is the vibration that he's still in, looking for the next come up with the next partnership, identifying that it's the feminine power ultimately that he's most prosperous in alignment with, but still with all the wrong, you got the right vibration, I should say the right object of affection with the Empress here, but in the wrong vibration, the wrong motivation, because the Empress is not taking no Knight of Swords. It's not happening. There's no need, there would be absolutely no justification to take a Page of Swords, a Knight of Cups, or a Knight of Swords, even if they was all wrapped up in one big pretty package and in a bow, especially with the undertones of the Seven of Swords. No way, Jose, it's not happening. So you got the right objective, but the wrong intentions still, and that's ultimately going to lead to yet more destruction in the end, and we're done. And ultimately leading to you, again, holding on to the wrong things. That Four of Pentacles is about still of being obsessive about material gain, material wealth, holding on to every penny that you've obtained or the appearances of such, of the appearances of prestige that you've acquired for yourself also is what that's giving me, this energy of wealth that you're looking to project, but that ultimately isn't really sound, secure, or stable, because the Four of Pentacles is even a demotion from the Five. You know, you're not wealthy. You're not wealthy mentally in this regard, in this vibration. It's not about being conservative in this sense. It's the lowest vibration of just still being too obsessed and fixated over material stability and security, and not being worried about your spirit. Meanwhile, what's coming into play at the end of the day? And matter of fact, I'm gonna put this up top because that's where it belongs. Justice. Justice is what is incurring now from the judge. Oh, that's awesome. We started with judgment, we end with justice. The final decision has been made. And because there's been no repentance, there's been no change of heart up until this point. I mean, there was going to need to be an accounting for the energy expelled anyway, but what this is unfortunately saying to me is that there still hasn't been a wisdom gained from this experience, that this energy is still just looking to figure out how to do the same thing in a different vibration, you know, to acquire the same results by means or motivations that just appear to be elevated, that appear to be transformed, but that aren't actually. You know, that there hasn't been much wisdom that's been gained from this great demise of sorts to his spiritual and physical nature, where he's more or less lost everything that he's acquired and has bruised his own respect and credibility in the meantime. There's still this pursuit of wealth and of this obsession with appearances that's not going to lead anywhere but down the road of destruction, just as it already has. And the justice is here because I don't think that there's even room for this to play out in that regard anymore. The wheel has turned, the world is shifting, the vibration of the universe is completely evolving, and anyone that's going to persist in the way of old world motivations and frequencies is ultimately going to be lost in the shuffle. They're going to be lost and stuck in that vibration, that cycle of karma and chaos and toxicity. And ultimately, that will be the justice of the universe by way of the judgment call, if there isn't a turnaround that's made in one way, shape, or form, in a big way, shape, and form, not even just in one way, in many ways, as a matter of fact. This is calling for a complete transformation of spirit, mind, and body in order to ultimately justify one's own existence at this point. Otherwise, it comes down to the point where your existence can no longer be justified universally. If you're at a no value, that's what it's coming down to. It's like, if you're not going to contribute to the creative consciousness of all in the most high frequency you can possibly do so, there will be no justification for your existence. Universally, what purpose will you serve? You know, that's the question. So what purpose will you serve unto yourself? For anyone that perhaps resonates with this, and I'm sure not many that watch me, you know, at this point in time, I'm definitely speaking of a more a lower frequency of energy that you may be able to relate to, or maybe have been on the brunt of by way of this diabolical plot and plan. But certainly this is the fate, this is the justice of those that refuse to answer to their higher selves, to aspire to be the absolute best that they possibly can be at this time. There's no justification for that vibration anymore. It served the purpose. It even served the purpose unto the very energy that perpetuated it, to teach a lesson, a valuable lesson, to value self. And if the lesson is not being received and accepted, that energy is going to be rejected, point blank, period. It's time for the universal consciousness to evolve to new heights. And whereas if it's not altogether being transitioned literally out of here, then it's just going to be a containment of, your own personal hell, in the sense of this vibration that you've ultimately created for yourself, that in the end you will have no one to blame but self. You will have no one to blame or to point fingers at but the man in the mirror as to why you are not living in heaven on earth at this point in time, because it's absolutely something that's offered to us all as the inheritance of universal source, for us to literally be inhabitants and conduits of that soul source of sun, that vitality of life force, and to begin to project that from our very being, and it manifests in a very material, sensational way. That's the inheritance that we are destined to as human beings, having the earthly, spiritual beings having this earthly experience. You can either receive that or you can reject that. Either way, the cause and effect is that the energy you expel will be justified, and those means will be met accordingly in equal force, as perhaps even more forcefully than from whence they were originated in the first place. So just be careful how you wield your energy, and also to the rest of us, be careful who you connect to, because someone that carries this vibration is contagious to your prosperity and to what you are creating in the highest vibration of your existence. You could have the grandest intentions for life and luxury and light and love, and find yourself in alignment with someone that has caped himself as a highly honorable man of valor, and the queen and the king of swords energy, or even in the queen of swords energy, or as some exalted emperor or empress. You have to really test the spirit and search your own discernment, your own spirit of knowing, those emotional cues in your body that are letting you know what's a good investment and what's not so great. You know it by how you feel. You can't ignore the feeling. And if you choose to do so, then again, there's no one to blame but you. We all have accountability and responsibility for our own spirits on this plane, and no matter what the societal or cultural or conventional projection may be, we are indeed sovereign spirits that have been authorized to be so by the Most High Source. So move in that power accordingly. All right? In any event, take care, keep your eyes peeled, be discerning, and stay devoted to your most divine self. Okay? Until next time, peace.